Hi, my name is Vanderhoef, and this is my informative speech about GMOs. So a lot of people never think about the process that their food takes to get from the field to the store, and from the store to their kitchen table. And a big part of this process starts with GMO, which you may be wondering what exactly GMOs are. Maybe you've heard of them, but you don't maybe not know. GMO actually stands for genetically modified organism. And a genetically modified organism is any organism that has had a strain of its DNA taken out and replaced with another plant or animal gene or DNA in order to create a stronger strain. And in the case of crops, maybe increasing crop yield. And only about 7 out of 10 Americans actually know what GMO stands for and what it all entails, according to a survey done online by Food Dive. So I first learned about GMOs in my agri-science class about a year and a half ago. We were doing a segment about GMO and what it all entails. We did several research papers, we watched a couple documentaries about it, and from there I did a little bit of my own research. I found it a very, very fascinating subject. And GMOs are a large part of our daily life and our food consumption. About 75% of foods in our stores have been genetically modified, although only 10 crops in the US are FDA approved and are sold in our grocery stores. There are also non-GMO food options as well. Non-genetically modified options, those would be the natural foods, and a lot of people prefer the natural foods because they know it's healthier for their body. So now that you know kind of a little bit about what GMO stands for, we can find out how it becomes a big part of our diet. And so genetically modifying food and organisms is not a new concept. It actually began several centuries ago. It started with farmers crossbreeding animals to get the perfect animal for maybe cattle or something, and then farmers also cross-pollinating their plants to get the perfect strain of corn, for example. And the first modernized term of GMO, or genetically modifying, actually came around in the 1970s by a grad student from Stanford University, according to the GMO timeline. So then in 1975, there was a conference held to kind of go over what GMO was and if it was safe, and then the first GMO to be FDA approved was a form of insulin. So if many diabetics actually take insulin and they have been genetically modified. And then the first GMO was ready by 1994. It was the Flavor Saver tomato, which had a longer shelf life, so meaning if you left it out on your counter, it wouldn't go bad as easily. And then from there, we now have 10 forms of produce and crops in our store that are genetically modified. So now that you know a little bit about the history, we can kind of go over how exactly it's done and how do biochemists create a GMO plant. So the first step in creating a GMO is to identify what trait the scientists want the plant to have. Some of the more desirable traits would be drought resistant or maybe resistant to a certain disease or fungus. So then the scientist would take the desired trait and make a copy of it, then place the copy into the crop that they're working with. So if they have a corn plant that they want to be drought resistant, they'll put that drought resistant gene in the corn plant. Then they'll keep it in their lab for several weeks, months, however long it takes for them to decide that that plant is safe for consumption and able to be sold in our grocery stores, and if it will actually grow, if it will produce food, yield yield fruit. So that's kind of the rough process of how GMOs are made. And then some interesting stats that I found online through the FDA, that, like I said, there are actually only 10 genetically modified crops for sale in the US, and about 75% of those crops make up our food in the grocery store. So if you have a corn plant that's genetically modified and they use it to make tortilla shells, and then those corn tortilla shells are used to make tortilla chips, those tortilla chips are GMO'd. And GMO'd plants actually can produce up to 25% increase in crop yield, so it's they produce more food. But on the other hand, only there are about 60 countries that actually regulate and prohibit the use of GMOs in food consumption, and those countries include Japan and Australia. And in the US, there are over 18 million farmers that choose to grow GMO crops. So there are the different sides of this. Everybody has their own opinions. But I hope this speech has given you a little bit better idea of what GMOs are. Maybe if you didn't know what they are, you do now. And you can go to the store and maybe see a label on a potato plant or a potato that says non-GMO, and you now know what that means. Thanks for watching my speech about genetically modified organisms.